This is the most important story in the US-Canada trade wars, but this time it includes China, because China just proposed something that has just changed the game completely. And pay attention, because this economy could change overnight should Mark Carney sign with this option. As it seems, he is set to do so, and if you stick around till the end, you're gonna see exactly why.
Hi, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to welcome you back to our studio. Thank you for making the time.
谢谢你再次请我来。
Thank you for inviting me again.
I'm going to start right away on the primary irritant between Canada and China right now, and that is the tariffs on electric vehicles and tariffs on canola and other agricultural products. I have a very simple question. Are the tariffs on Canadian agricultural products directly on there because of the EV tariffs?
I think the question you have raised touches the crux of the problems in our trade relations. I agree with what you said, that China's tariffs on Canadians' agricultural products are a countermeasure against the EV tariffs and the unilateral unjustified tariffs on China's steel and aluminum products. And I have said multiple times, if Canada is ready to correct these practices, China will also respond accordingly.
Can I follow up then and ask very bluntly, if Canada removes the tariffs on Chinese EVs, China will then remove tariffs on Canadian agricultural products?
So if Canada removes the unilateral unjustified tariffs on Chinese products, China will also reciprocate accordingly. And if the EV tariffs are removed, then China will also remove the tariffs on the relevant products of Canada.
There you have it. The Chinese ambassador said that should Canada remove the EV tariff, China will remove all reciprocal canola oil tariffs as a result, which, by the way, amounts to tens of billions of lost economic output and is one of, if not the top 3 major exports in central Canada, sitting behind energy as well as minerals. Now let's see what tariffs are in place right now.
Canada has a slate of tariffs in place on Chinese imports, including on electric vehicles, steel, and aluminum. China has hit back with significant levies of its own on Canadian agriculture, including most notably on all canola products. A few weeks ago, China's Premier and Prime Minister Carney met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, the highest political level meeting between the two countries since 2018. With me now is China.
And let's not forget, Canada agreed to these EV tariffs as a result of American pressure, which has for some reason led to America bullying Canada, or shall I say, which is also due to a weak liberal leadership that has put Canada in this position to be bullied with in the first place. And oddly enough, a former NDP leader came out saying something similar. Let's take a look.
So, China's ambassador to Canada says China will drop its tariffs on agriculture if Canada drops its EV tariffs on China. How should Canada respond?
Favorably. I think this will also play very interestingly into our current negotiations with the Americans. Listening to Howard Lutnick this week saying he wanted to destroy the Canadian automobile industry, but trying to make sure that Canadians have no choice but to buy American cars, that's called pushing your luck in terms of a negotiation. Back in the fall, a year ago, before Trump was reelected, Canada made a deal with the United States that we would follow their lead and add a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. There was frankly no reason for it other than the fact that the Americans saw that the Chinese were coming in with cars that were of high quality and were much less expensive than anything the Americans could manufacture. They were worried about their industry. So we put ourselves in lockstep with them, Renee, and we said, okay, 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. What did we get in return from the United States? We got attacked. We were told we were going to be made the 51st state. We were told that they were going to go after our auto industry and our other key industries and cripple us economically. Oh, and by the way, the Chinese, of course, in a tit-for-tat move, after we imposed those tariffs, decided to impose some of our agricultural products, including canola. That's really hurt our farmers out west, in particular on the prairies. But it's also something that the average Canadian taxpayer has to worry about, because, of course, those farmers are going to have to get subsidies. So the Chinese are doing it their way. They're just saying, you did this, we did that, you will remove ours. if you remove yours. And Canada should really give that serious consideration. There's absolutely no reason for us to be kowtowing to the Americans on this anymore when they're playing the types of games that they're playing with us.
Trust me, I 100% get it. You and many Canadians are justifiably upset of American aggression towards Canada. But that doesn't mean we should just accept a deal just because the Americans don't like it. Or in other words, accept a deal to pressure the Americans. Because these auto industry leaders, which you're about to see, have perfectly explained why allowing Chinese auto manufacturers into an economy means the destruction of that economy. Let's take a look.
Chinese ambassador used the word unjustified to characterize the initial set of tariffs on electric vehicles, which were applied about a year ago by the then federal government under Prime Minister Trudeau. In your view, I know you take a different view. Why, in your view, are they justified?
They are extremely justified because the Chinese economic model follows a very simple formula: scale, dump, and destroy. They've scaled their industry through massive subsidies. $230 billion have gone into the EV industry. Then they dump the excess product abroad. China is going to be exporting, by the end of this decade, almost 10 million vehicles abroad. And then they destroy the industries in those markets by using predatory pricing and undermining the industrial sectors in those target export destinations. We cannot allow that to happen, and that's why the federal government took the actions that it did. They put in place a tariff to protect our market. It is the right move, and regardless of what the ambassador is saying, we cannot change that stance.
How has it, if at all, Flavio, protected the domestic market here? Because I think Canadians will be well aware of a lot that has changed in the interim, right? In that last year politically, particularly south of the border, and the policies pursued there around electric vehicles. Like, has this had the desired impact on the industry?
Well, the thing that we had asked for was to say, look, if manufacturers and the supply chain and the raw materials suppliers in the critical minerals and then also in steel and aluminum are going to have a chance in electrifying, and we've been pushing very hard for electrification because I think it plays to Canadian strengths, then we need to put these tariffs in place to buy some time with the Chinese. When Brian says they will be exporting 10 million vehicles a year, your viewers should know that's 10% of the world's market being exported from China at a subsidized rate. That's about as many vehicles are manufactured in the U.S., which a lot of you viewers might think is the world's biggest auto manufacturing play, but they make 11 million cars a year in that market. This scale, dump, and destroy is what they did in consumer electronics and what they did in solar. And, you know, I know that this is a tense moment when we have a trade fight with the two world's biggest economic superpowers, but giving up the market for no reason it doesn't work out for anybody, whether that's people who work in automotive or people who work in lumber or people who work in farming. And then again, and I'll just say this, I don't know why we're taking the cues from the Chinese ambassador. He was sent from Beijing. And it's very disappointing to hear premiers work off the cue from your interview to tell the rest of Canadians what we should be doing out loud. We can have disputes on what the Canadian position is, but do it in the locker room and then go out and play the game. Don't say, hey, by the way, we're going to lose to the Yankees and we should just give up.
Which we didn't, by the way. We're now worried about Seattle, but that's a whole different story.
Realistically speaking, Carney has 3 scenarios. Accept the deal by removing the tariffs and thereby regain tens of billions of dollars of economic output, but then also, on the other hand, threaten his own auto industry and make an already aggressive American administration more angry. Or scenario number 2, reject the deal and maintain status quo. Mark Carney, the Liberals, anybody in power right now, it doesn't matter if it's left or right, cannot afford the status quo. Too many jobs are lost, too many companies are leaving, and you can see with the recent CRA auto payment structure they're implementing, the government is in need of cash flow because they probably are anticipating people not filing their taxes. Or if he is smart, scenario number 3, Mark Carney and his liberal establishment can use this trade potential deal from China as a tool to leverage the Americans in their trade negotiations. Now, I know we may not like Carney or we may not like the Liberals, but at the end of the day, it's Canadian lives like yours and I's that matter. The Canadian economy that should be standing tall and strong. So I, for one, although I'm a conservative, I hope Carney chooses this scenario, and I hope Carney is able to save this economy. The first scenario, which is the one where Carney would accept the deals by removing the tariffs. And the third scenario, I'm not going to use this finger, and the third scenario where he's going to use this deal as a form of a leverage and as a negotiating tool against the Americans are the most likely outcomes of what's going to happen here. But what do you think? If you were in his shoes, what would you do? How would you go about doing this whole trade deal and trade negotiation? As always, never forget to like, subscribe, leave down your thoughts below. I always reply to everything, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next one.